If I ask you to tell me one word to summarise our season, you're either saying shite or injuries. I think at least anyway. Unless you're Delulu, you might say something else, but I hover between those two. Now, there hasn't been a season in recent memory where United have struggled this much with injuries. We've missed key players, and we've had big games where we've lost certain players, and that it's happened at least once. You count up just the Crystal Palace game alone, more names on this very, very long list, and perhaps missing Bruno Fernandes, paired with Scott McTominay's injury as well, means United have had 64 cases of injury or illness which have caused the player to miss a match this season, which is impressive. The injuries have ravaged us. It's hard to say where we'd be them without them, but I think it'd be higher than 8th. Now, currently, our current injured list is Malacia, Maguire, Martinez, Varane, Shaw, Rashford, McTominay, Bruno Fernandes, Martial, Lindelof and Camboala. That's 11 important players to us here. And actually, the ones that aren't injured might not be fully fit either. So the players like Johnny Evans, is he fully fit? Probably not. And, some of them players have been injured for multiple times already this season as well. So you have to start saying, right, okay, why? We're joking that they're jousting and doing a Royal Rumble at training. But why? What is going on? Sometimes injuries are just unlucky, and that can absolutely happen. You can also have some players there that are just injury prone. Luke Shaw's missed half his Manchester United career through injuries. Anthony Martial probably more like 60%. Is it the fitness staff? Is it the amount of games? Is it the amount of work that was required last season that has fell into this season? Is it then the medical staff that aren't allowing them to be fully back to fitness before they're signing them off as fit? Let's look into those, right? So let's start looking at the amount of games that United have had to play. Now, this season, we're at 48 games in all competitions. That's Premier League, Champions League, FA Cup, Carabao Cup. Is that an excuse for the amount of injuries that we've had? Compare this to City, who've played more games than us this season, 55 games in all competition. Now, City's squad is a lot larger than ours in strength and in depth, but they're nowhere near the same level of injuries. They're managing their games miles better than us. We've gone out early a fair bit this season. We exited the EFL Cup early. We're at the same stage City are obviously in the FA Cup. Premier League is, well, it's the same for everyone. City seems to be coping a lot better. And let's look at last season. Last season, United played all bar every game, semi-finals aside in Europa League. We were there and thereabouts with a World Cup in the middle of it. I wonder how much that impacts us. But it was over a year ago now, and you think, I guess things can accumulate. Sir Alex used to send players for a couple of week break here and there. There's fucking zero chance Ten Hag's having the opportunity to do that outside of Jadon Sancho, who looks quite fresh, ironically, at the moment. How's Greenwood's injuries been this year after a little bit of time off that he had for his off the field stuff? Has that helped them in the long run? Is it luck? I don't know how you quantify luck, but you can compare our injury situation with Newcastle's a little bit. They rank similarly, maybe even a touch worse. Maybe not as key, but they've had as many injuries as us. He said he thought it was bad luck. Is that possible? They are missing some decent players. They've got Botman, Tonali's out for a different reason. Lascelles, Willock, Shah, Trippier. Is there something in the intensity uplift that they saw once Eddie Howe came in and he demanded more from the players, the same way Erik Ten Hag came in, started demanding more from players? Has that impacted both clubs similarly? Because I think Spurs are about to hit this kind of same sort of thing as well, it would appear. Is it a fitness staff? They seem to be getting a lot of the criticism. Looks like players are getting rushed back to the matchday squad, which you can sympathise with because the 11s that we're able to field are absolutely deadly. But then you say, okay, well, who's Who's signing that off? As a professional, could you sit there and sign off a player that you know not to be fit? Half of me finds that very hard to believe. United recently hired Gary O'Driscoll, the Arsenal club doctor, to become the new head of medicine. He's been called quite a progressive coach. Reportedly was excellent at dealing with Arsenal's issues during the pandemic. But I do remember Arsenal quoting some difficult injury periods during his final years at the club. Is it unfair to put it on him? I don't know enough. Hence why I'm trying to report, collate all of this info. Reports in the Mirror earlier this season said there is understood to be a feeling that rivals are significantly more advanced in their medical departments. Who's going to sort that out then? Is it the training intensity? Something else to think about. The intensity of training on a week-to-week basis, the level of matches that we had, the frequency of matches towards the back end of last season, the truncated off-season, straight into a heavy pre-season, and then all the different competitions that we've been in. Is there something in that? Ten Hag clearly wants us to be intense in our play. Is training intensity the same? I've never been. I can't tell you. Is the worry that he's still trying to coach with a level of high intensity, high press with a fragile group of players that aren't up to the level, haven't got the legs? Is that what's happening in training? Is that why it's so many muscle injuries? Mainu and Eriksen in midfield together, they definitely lack the legs to be a partnership in midfield. It's obvious. Watching them get overrun, making the centre-halves overcommit, making them have to run back, making us poorer on the transition, making us cover more miles than a fucking normal team should have to. And this happens 5 to 10 times a game. Is that causing them muscle strains? Are we asking for too many high-intensity sprints out of the players that generally aren't looking at high-intensity sprints? The management of the squad, the recruitment of the players, it's been fucking woeful. And the issue with all of this is there's an overarching issue here, and there's something that needs to be addressed for those blaming just injuries. We're not the only football team that's ever been dealt with injuries. Villa are missing 7. Bournemouth are missing 8. Brentford are missing 4. Brighton have got 8 out, and it has actually really affected them. Chelsea are missing 14, although they've got a squad of about 900. Burnley are missing 5. Palace without 7. Everton 6. Luton 8. It ain't just us. Now, you could argue maybe some of those players are more key to us than certain other players, but it's semantics. At the end of the day, injuries happen. You got to be able to ride them out. You got to be able to have people ready to step in. Players get so little rest in modern football. Company made a great point recently about internationals. He said there needs to be a cap on appearances for players in a season, which puts a limit to the amount of games a player can feature in. I think that would be one way to limit the stress on a player's body, but it's a bold ask. Is that the right idea? It doesn't look like there's going to be any slowdown. FIFA and UEFA are determined to add more games into the calendar, more internationals, more European games, because that's where the money is. Do squads need to grow to accommodate? Because to me, it can't go on. Sir Alex Ferguson noticed the requirement for rotating a squad back in the 90s. And I think the intensity of the Premier League, the intensity of the competition and the expectations at a club like Manchester United, they almost require you to rotate more heavily. Yes, there has to be some sympathy with the injuries. And I think we have to find the primary driver for the injuries. I also don't think it's the biggest issue that we face right now. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. See you in a bit. Hey, thank you for watching the video. If you are new around these parts, then don't forget to subscribe. My channel is proudly supported by my community on Patreon. If you'd like to get a little bit of extra content, a Discord group, meetups, 5-a-side games, weekly podcasts, behind the scenes, and even an occasional bit of transfer news as and when I get it, then for the price of a pint, you can show your appreciation for the content that we make and get some goodies for doing so as well. Check the link in the description or click the button right here. You'll also find all of my socials here too if you want to follow me on any of those platforms. Nice one.